What's up, y'all, and welcome back to the Michael Experience Podcast. I am your orator and originator, Michael, and these are my thoughts, my life, my way. So, I want to talk about some of the hardest lessons, life lessons, that I believe I've had to face and that you will face if you haven't already, but that we all face. And the one that keeps coming up to me more recently is this idea of somehow you being responsible for others wanting to manipulate or take advantage of or just kind of step on and use as a doormat your good intentions, and somehow you have owned the negative response in that, like, why does this keep happening to me? Is something wrong with me, or how do I change me because of it? And so I wanted to have this discussion with you because I think it's very important that you continue being yourself and that you don't stop being you because others try to take advantage or aren't able to see your value, because you are exactly who you are meant to be and you are doing exactly what you are meant to do. Okay. One of the harder questions in it is, why is this happening? And I know I said you are who you are and you are being who you're supposed to be and doing what you're supposed to do. But that sounds very simplistic when it's really much deeper than that. I believe we all have something to contribute to the world. And in a space where there's always duality, and you can look at that as good or bad, positive, negative, good or evil, whatever you want to look at it as, there is duality there. And where there is this type of opposition, it creates a need for everyone to do their part to create balance. And sometimes it just does not feel good. It does not feel good for whatever reason, but everyone has a role and everybody's energy is important to a bigger spiritual system. And so if you are like me and you keep attracting people who just seem to want to take from you, and you're like, why is it that I keep getting these people wanting to take from me and they never want to give? And I always feel drained. Like, why am I stupid enough to keep doing it? First of all, you're not stupid. There is nothing wrong with you. You are just being the light that you are meant to be. You are being the energy source that you are meant to be. You are meant to attract people. Now, when you're attracting the right people with the right energy, it feels wonderful. However, you don't always know who the right people are until you spend time with them. And so I would just encourage that as you are meeting people, you continue to be exactly who you are and give exactly what you give, but develop a filter and a lens to identify the characteristics in people who you know don't mean you any good. And that means you have to focus on that sometimes, not all the time, but you know that the good energy from you is consistent. You know that the light that you're beaming and the illumination that you are doing is always going to be a constant. It's always going to be there. You don't need to spend time sifting through that. That is what it is, and it's just going to be. But what you don't know is who is truly matching that energy and who truly wants to be there for the right reasons. And so, as you meet people and encounter people, you have to do a better job at closing that window of your emotional plunge, I guess I would say, or your emotional defeat. Because I think that's what happens when you feel like you've been used for so long. Emotionally, you get drained and you're like, why don't I just do like everybody else does? And that's just not who you're meant to be. But we have to do a good job of filtering those people, and that sometimes means looking for those little characteristics that people try to hide, but they just pop out ever so often. Maybe you're having a conversation with someone and they're having a wonderful exchange with you. And then there's just one thing that they said that's like, wait a minute, that's something else. And then maybe the person jumps right back into, that mode where they're putting their representative forward because that's a thing. And they jump right back into it. And sometimes we miss those little subtleties because we're like, okay, well, maybe maybe I didn't hear what I think I heard, or maybe I didn't feel what I think I felt, because that's the other thing too. People can be giving you good lip service and people can be giving you good, acting and body mechanics, but there's something about the energy that is off. It's just like, yeah, it's just they're saying all of the right things, but somehow I don't believe it. But they must know because they're saying it and they're confident in it. And maybe I'm misreading. You are not misreading. You are not misreading their energy, and you heard exactly what you thought you did. There's a small piece in us that we want to see the best and the good in everyone. We do. We just feel like there's something innately good in everybody. And to a degree, I'm inclined to agree. But where there is good, as we define it, there is also bad, or where there is the opposite energy, right? And we have to pay attention to what that looks like too, because impact is a very big thing that we miss. And sometimes those small things can have a great negative impact. And we're like, oh my God, but everything else seems great. Sure. But that little bit of darkness, that little bit of untoward, that little bit of maniacal ego that pops out can cause a very long, devastating impact. And so we want to be very careful that we don't overlook that. Now, am I telling you that everyone is perfect? No, because somewhere someone is saying, well, Michael, I think we all have the propensity to do something bad or evil or dark or whatever you want to call that negative energy. Of course, we all do. It's not about the fact that we all have the propensity, the energy, the urge, or even the thoughts. It is how we let those thoughts spill over into our actions, into our words, into how we treat people, into the trail of devastation that some of us leave behind. It is what we do with those things that really matters. And so it's one of those things for me where you have to check yourself. We all have to check our worst impulses. We do. We're innately human and we have them. Even the best of us, sometimes we just want to crash out a little bit, whether it's internally or externally. We just have a moment where we're like, gosh, there's this energy and I got to let it out. It's how you let it out that matters, and how you continue to let it out that matters. And the other side of that is, if you do let it out and unintentionally you harm someone, what is the action and what is the initiative that you take to correct? And that's the thing that a lot of people that are takers will not do. And you have to be very, very cognizant when that happens. Someone can hurt your feelings. It happens, whether they intend to or not. I get my feelings hurt all the time, all the time. And some of it is just me and my own personal feelings. And sometimes my outlook on a situation may be different. And so, yeah, my feelings get hurt in that moment. It is up to me in that moment to decide how I want those to manifest into action, into reality. How do I want that to look? Do I want it to come off as anger? Do I want it to come off as sadness? Do I want this to be a teachable moment? Is this a just moment of growth for me where I'm just like, you know what? This is something that is new. This is a new situation, and let me sift through it. But it is what you decide to do in those moments. Now, where there are two or more people concerned, right? If you are involved emotionally, if you are invested in someone else's well being and you do something intentionally, that's one thing, right? We're clear on that. But if you unintentionally do something that hurts somebody for whatever reason, a lot of us are going to feel called to see what we can do to help understand, help with understanding, right? Maybe it's something that we don't change, and maybe it is just a them issue. But if I've said something that aroused some negative or untoward feelings, as a person that is invested emotionally in the person and in their well being, I'm going to say, hey, like, let me help you understand my point of view. And it's going to be very clear that they are not there to diminish, to take away, or to drain from you. And if you just have differences, you just have differences. I say this to you because it is very important that you notice these signs. Again, it can be anything. These are just, I think, two good examples so far of maybe there's a little thing that was said. Maybe that person reacted to your feelings organically. You didn't have to ask them to because they just noticed. But when those things are not happening, right, and people are not taking the initiative, you can continue on and hope for the best, if you will. But I implore you to lean into those things and say, this does not feel good to me. And because it does not feel good to me, I'm not going to be a part of it. And that doesn't make you selfish. I think sometimes guilt can have you as a person who wants everybody to be great. You want everybody to have fun. You want everybody to be successful. Sometimes guilt can creep in. And if you think about your own well being and your own mental and emotional safety in the moment, if you think about that, it's like, oh my God, what does that say about me? I'm no better than the other person. And that's not true. You have every right to protect your feelings. You have every right to protect your peace. And it is okay to block something off when it does not serve you. I believe that we are all here in a service capacity of some sort, whatever that may be, yin, yang, good, bad, good, evil, whatever, however you look at it. We are all here to be of service in some way. Some of us are going to teach some very hard lessons. Some of us are going to be the hard lesson, right? But there are some of us that just exist to show people that there is something else. There is something else. And there are those of us that are meant to be a light, even when we're surrounded by darkness. The one thing that will always be consistent is that the light will continue to shine and it will continue to move through. And you just have to continue to be that. And the brighter and the stronger your light gets, the more the darkness will try to encroach. But you will just continue to do what it is that you are meant to do. You're not going to dim because of it. You're not going to become a part of the darkness. You're not going to, seep into it and become it. Absolutely not. You are going to continue to be you. So when I examine this is there something wrong with me question, I've been there. I've definitely recently actually um went through a series of questions like, God, Michael, what if you just do what everybody else does? It seems there are people that cheat to win. Maybe you just cheat to win. You just cheat to win. I see people do it all the time. I recognize it. I'm like, maybe I should do that. And then I thought to myself, then who would I become if I did that? Because I think it's very easy to look at how somebody else's come up has happened and what you think or perceived happened for their come up and what you perceive as their success and you feel like you're owed success, right? It is very easy to get caught up in I feel like I know that I deserve it more than them. I feel like I just know. It's where's mine? Right? You don't know what's happening behind closed doors with those people. You don't know. You probably have a just pinhole into to what they've done to get where they are and what that feels like at the end of the day. Assumptions can really have you thinking that somebody has it much better than you on the outside, but on the inside, extreme turmoil, chaos, and pandemonium. I've met so many people that I thought were just uber successful. They had the cars, they've had the clothes, they've had the careers, and they were just downright empty inside, you know, to meet those people who don't know what it feels like to to just kind of reverberate and rejoice in other people's happiness. Some people don't know what that feels like. And I marvel at how many people I see when somebody else is, attaining and achieving and excelling, that they are upset. They're like, if they win, that means that I lost in some way. And I'm thinking there's more than enough for everybody to go around, but you are in such a competitive um gaining spirit, like grasping spirit, that you don't even see that there is room for everybody to win. And when you place joy in other people's success and happiness, like that's a joy in itself. And to be a small part of someone else's acceleration is even better. I really thrive in moments where I see people achieving their wildest dreams. And when I see people achieving their goals, it makes me feel really good to see it. I get very excited about it. Even if I don't know the person, I'm super, super excited. I'm like, you go, because you never know what it took for someone to get there. And just like I have a story, I assume that everyone else has a story and a journey, and whatever they went through is whatever they had to go through. But I am a living embodiment of it's the path that it took is properly not properly, but the path that I took doesn't resemble what this finished product people see. I'll say that's a little bit better. It doesn't. My pathway is rugged. It is littered with ups and downs. It has tons of mistakes and side steps, potholes, bad judgment in some moments, moments of anger, moments of recompense because of it. I mean, I've had so many things emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally, all the least possible that are littered in my pathway, right? But when people see me and when people experience me, they're like, I would never guess. You have such a light, you have such an energy, you have such a caring that I would not think that you have gone through the things that you have. And I believe that we all have a story similar. We do. At the core of it, we've all had to conquer something, right, within ourselves, for ourselves. We've all had to go through a series of emotions. We've all had to go through a mental expansion. We've all had to go through like a mental and emotional dump of things that were placed on us, maybe by relatives, maybe by friends, maybe by society, to get to a place where we're like, this is the real me. We've all had a journey and a pathway that has all of those things. And I think the beauty in all of that is allowing all of that to be fueled and recycled and recommitted in some way to the greater path and the greater journey that is ours. All those things that can be perceived bad, we've flipped them on their head. We've recommissioned them. We've recycled them into something better, something greater, of more value. So even though I look back and there are so many things that I'm like, my goodness, can't believe I came from that. I realized that it was all very, very important in order for me to be this light that people see. And in order for this aura that I have to really shine through, it has all been informed by every step I've ever taken, even if it was a misstep, even if it was a fall, a scrape, a bruise, or a swollen ankle, because I did fall down the stairs at one point. I don't know why that is important, but I did fall down the stairs at one point, and I had to wear this god awful boot for a while. But all of it in the larger scheme plays a part in who I am and the light that continues to shine brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And so the same is for you. You are going to continue to be who you are, because all of those people that took advantage or tried to take advantage, all of those situations that came to knock you off of your square, you feel like they did, all of those things maybe at this point feel like, God, it's just been so negative for me. I want you to recycle and recommission those things in your mind now, circumvent that energy to something new, because those are the things that make you push harder. Those are the things that make you see people a little bit clearer. And it doesn't mean you have to see everybody as great or good, but you see people clearer. And there is power in seeing people for exactly who they are. And that way, you know who to engage with and who not to engage with, or what level to engage in, because that's very important. All of this is a part of a bigger makeup and a bigger spiritual situation. So I want to make sure that you are very clear on that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. And so I did surface, how do I change it? How do I change it? There is nothing for you to change about who you are. It is what I mentioned earlier. It is changing the way that you see people, and it is the way that you allow people into your space, mental, emotional, physical. You have to look at people and see them for exactly who they are and not what you want them or who you want them to be. That is the thing that you change. You change the optic, you change the perception. You can want people to be great. You can want people to be great. You can want somebody to come in your life and be just, you know, magnanimous in all the ways that they can possibly be. But sometimes that is just not who they are. It is just not. And I've always said to people, what you allow from people is what you become to people. What you allow from a person is what you become to that person. So if you are their constant source of reassurance, if you are their constant person that is their ego boost, if you're the person that they can come and trauma dump on, if you're the person that they can come and verbally assault you and you just take it on the chin because whatever the reason is, whatever you allow from a person is what you become to a person. And so I just would implore you to lean in, and I mean inward. Lean inward and ask yourself, how does this person add value to my life? And what is the significance of what the person is bringing? Ask yourself the questions. Ask yourself. And if you feel like a person is not contributing, that's not a person that needs to be in your life. And it's not selfish. Like I said before, it's not selfish. You're just redirecting people to where they're supposed to go. We all have a place, we all have a purpose. You're redirecting people. You can't make people fit in your story. You can't. You can't take a piece of a puzzle from another one and hope that it fits. The picture is going to look very different, even if it is. Even if the shape is the same, the picture is going to look very different. It's going to stick out like a sore thumb. So we just have to do a very good job of redistributing the people where they need to go. And that person may look great, they may have a wonderful resume, they may have some things that are great, but they're not great for you. And that's okay. It's important that we send people where they're supposed to go or redirect them away from where they're not supposed to be at the very least. So there's nothing to change about who you are. Don't think that you have to dim your light. Don't think that you have to conform. Don't think that you have to minimize. You continue to be exactly who you are, and you fine tune that lens and that filter for people who are just not meant to be there. They are not meant to be there. And I would venture to say you're probably sitting there right now thinking of somebody that either left your life abruptly or not, or somebody that is in your life right now that you know and you have this feeling is not supposed to be there, but you are waiting and hoping and wondering if there will be some confirmation or wondering if you got it wrong. You don't. You've got it right. The only thing that you're doing right now that you shouldn't is allowing that person to be in your space and make you feel confused, make you question who you are and how you show up. That is the only thing that you are possibly doing wrong. But you are exactly who you are meant to be. And you are going to do exactly what it is that you are meant to do. I want to tell just a small story. I always love telling my stories. Um, in a previous series, I talked about how I attract wounded people and I made particular reference to wounded men, and it was for the purposes of how it became a realization for me. I now know that it has always been that way, but dating men really is what brought it to my mental forefront. But when I look back over my life and I think about some of the earliest moments that people were just drawn to me, I think about all of the friends that I had in elementary school. I think about in middle school, like how things changed and high school and so on and so forth. But what I'm very clear on is I've never wanted to be the center of attention. Never. I just kind of wanted to do what I do and just kind of fly under the radar. But that's not who I was meant to be, because there's something innate in me that makes me want to see people and makes me want to understand people, because I think we all deserve to be seen, heard, and understood at the very least. We all deserve it. You deserve it. But I remember in elementary school, um, I was in the cafeteria and getting food, and I was just doing my thing. I was just doing my thing. And I remember there was a group of kids that, spoke to me. I remember Carol. One of the girls' name was Carol. Her brother's name was Edgar. But I remember those two. I remember those two very, very, very vividly. Um, but there were a couple of others that I can't remember the names right now, but they just kind of embraced me, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, cool. And I would sit with them at lunch, and I ended up sitting with them for like a couple of days or whatever. And I noticed that um, some of the other kids that my brother and sister had known for a while were just like, well, why is your brother hanging out with the weird kids? Like, why is your brother hanging out with the weird kids? And so it became this thing where they were like, you shouldn't hang out with them. And I remember one day, I don't know if it was, I don't know who it was, but one day, I think it was one of my brother's friends was like, or my sister's friends maybe, was like, why do you hang out with the dirty butts? And I just remember that being a thing in school. And I was like, what do you mean hang out with the dirty butts? And so in the hierarchy of elementary and community and stuff like that, the kids that I was having lunch with were really the underprivileged kids. I mean, the severely underprivileged kids. Now, when I look back at it in my life, I think to myself, I I guess the neighborhood we grew up in was predominantly black, and it was the manufacturing, neighborhood, because there was Delco and Chrysler in the city that I grew up with, and so most of our families kind of existed in that world, and so, maybe, I think Carol and, you know, Edgar or Lester. I feel like the names are just coming back to me. Edgar and Lester. I can't remember Carol, Edgar, Lester. That sounds about right. Um, but maybe their families didn't work in that manufacturing place, and so perhaps they were viewed a little bit different. I didn't understand that for a long time, because there was just something in me that always just was drawn to people, and whoever was in my space and whoever contributed positively in my space, that is who I wanted to be around. And so as I moved through elementary and middle school, I kept the same friends, but I also had other friends that were in this manufacturing community. But the two would never intersect. It would be one of those moments where it was like when one group came up, the other one would disperse. And that just became my thing all throughout school. And I know what people felt, because at different times they would say, Michael, like, why do you hang out with them? Or like, we're gonna have this, but they can't come. And I used to hate that so bad, because I was like, I don't understand why. I was like, I don't understand why we all can't just hang out. And I didn't understand it for a very long time. But there was just something in me. There was just something in me that just I drew people in, and so it worked for me, and I was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna exist in this duality, and nobody is gonna tell me anything different. I get to choose who my friends are, and that is just how I moved through it at that particular time. Even now, as an adult, I move through my life seeing people as people, but people have always been drawn to me. And for a person that is like, I just want to fade into the background. I just want to just, be inside my own bubble. What I have come to know about me is that there is an aura. There is an aura and people feel it. People feel it. And when I talk about being seen and heard and understood, I think that my aura has just emitted into the universe forever and a day that I am a light and a battery of sorts in that way, in that people that I encounter will feel more like themselves because I see them. People will understand themselves more because that is how my brain is wired for me to understand me and to understand you. So the questions and the conversations are always going to push people to be their best selves and to question why in a lot of cases we are holding up, conventions of old and tradition. It's always been in me to question things in that way and always to push people to think a little bit differently and to think for themselves, you know, and I have continued that my whole life. I'm like, yeah, you are really great at this though. Did you ever notice like you were really great at that? I mean, I know somebody's telling you to do this thing, but you are really great at that. And so again, I was just being me. I was just being me, but I became just an advisor for people all of my life. All of my life, people would come to me for advice. Older than me, younger than me, my age, everybody would come to me for advice. And I never knew the significance or the importance of it. I just was like, why are people always asking me? And why do these people always want my advice? And even when I moved into a corporate career space, and I kept getting people that would come to me for things over and over again. And I was like, what is wrong with these people? Like, why are they, is this person like, are they trying to trick me? Are they trying to mind freak me? Like, what is going on? And I remember I had a leader. I remember I had a leader early on that I was just very honest with her. And I said, I don't understand why they keep asking me questions. I don't know if they're trying to ask me to trip me up or like, are they doing this because they don't think I know? Like, what is going on? And she looked at me so confused and she was like, Michael, did it ever occur to you that people come to you because they know you have the answers? And even more so that you have the answers, they feel comfortable coming to you and asking the questions. And I remember freezing in that moment. I was like, oh my God, these people are not asking me a million questions because they think I don't know. They're asking me because they feel like I do. And they are comfortable enough to come. I'm like, oh, but that's a perspective that I had to first learn and then acknowledge and then grow into, but then figure out how it all fit into the bigger purpose, the bigger spiritual purpose, the bigger spiritual pathway and design and program. I was like, how does this fit in there? And when I look back through every part of my life, the consistent thing is that the more I try to blend in, I can't really blend in, the more I try to hide, the more I try to subdue this interaction thing, is that the more prevalent it becomes and the more people that show up. It's nothing like walking into a room full of hundreds or even thousands of people and groups of people just find their way over to you. They just find their way. And when the conversation excites me, I jump into it. I just immediately jump into it. And there's so much of me that is analytical, but there's so much of me that has surrendered to energy, because energy is just so powerful. And I used to try to swallow it. I used to try to swallow it, but I've always been a very in tune with the world kind of thing, always very perceptive of other people's shift in emotions and energy. So I've always had that, but I used to try to swallow it once upon a time. And then one day when I started putting all of my puzzle pieces together, I was like, you are actually meant to do this. Like, you are meant to do this. The thing that you said you didn't wanna do is the exact thing that you are called to do. And so, everything that I have done consciously to work and operate in that gift and in that talent that is me, being myself, I have had people come in and try to take advantage. I've had people come in and try to take advantage. I've had people come in with bad intentions. I've had people that said they were my friends, and then they turned on me the first chance that an opportunity presented itself for them to get whatever else they wanted. I've had all of that happen. All of it happen. Lovers, potential lovers, suitors, all of that. But what I will tell you is something happened in the last few years. Something happened in the last few years where I felt like I was doing great. I was like, yeah, I'm doing good. The people around me are pretty good people, and I've kind of recognized some things. I was like, I'm doing a good job. Yeah, I have boundaries. I have boundaries. I have emotional walls up. Yes. And then life pulled me into a series of situations where that was challenged. And I talked about it in the episode about me dating, right, and attracting, wounded people. I talked about it there because as I began to move about and try to get to know people, I had recurring things happen over and over and over. But at the very beginning, I started really noticing that people never asked me about me. Never. Never. And when I say that, I mean in any real meaningful way. You know what I mean? Like there would be certain things like, oh, what's your favorite color? The things that we do when we meet people. Oh, like where did you grow up? Like things that you really, I mean, you don't really care about. It's just small talk. But nobody ever asked me about like me. Nobody ever asked about me. And I started wondering, I was like, when is the person going to ask about me? Because in a space where I am recognizing, because this is who I am, I'm recognizing your passion. I'm recognizing the things that fuel your dreams. I'm recognizing, where you're trying to go and what you're putting out. I nurture people in that way, but nobody's asking me about my passion, and nobody is recognizing the energy that I'm putting forth. And so when you realize that people are pulling from your energy source, but nobody is daring to, you know, add or put it back into, it's like, okay, all right, this is what this looks like. This is what this looks like. But what it also looked like was people would ask me questions about me and they would go through the motions. They would be like, "Oh man, you're so successful and you do this and I think that that is great and I want to support you and I just believe in us building together." And I'd be like, "Okay." And we'd have that conversation over and over again for the first time. Let that sink in. I'd be having the same conversation over with somebody for the first time. And if you're still unclear about what I'm saying, it is that we would revisit the same subject matter. And when we were talking, they would act like it was the first time I ever told them the information. And I'd be like, fascinating, because we've talked about this before. And if it wasn't apparent through my lived interactions, me talking about work and things like that, and I noticed that they were not paying attention. I noticed they just were simply not paying attention and they were not retaining the information. And I was like, oh, so this person is here because they want me to fulfill them and satiate their ego and their wants and dreams and ambitions, but they're not here to do the same for me. I noticed that when I was having a bad day and my energy was a little bit off, I noticed how that person wouldn't adjust and be like, "Hey, is there anything I can do to make you feel better?" Or, "Hey, I noticed you were just a little off today. Would you like to talk about it?" Nope, they would just bulldoze right on through. Business as usual. I started noticing those things. And I said to myself, this is very interesting. This is very interesting. Now, I hadn't had particular lens and filter fine-tuned before. I thought I was doing a wonderful job, but in the moments, in those very first moments of being back out there, I noticed it, and I said, "Okay, so do I close myself off? Am I gonna close myself off from people, because I just feel like everybody just wants to take, or do I continue being me? What does that look like?" And so I took a series of breaks from trying to get to know people in that way. And I just said, I'm going to work on, just, I'm just going to work on um, my historical kind of timeline or my interaction with people. And I'm going to sift through that and see if I can make sense of how I got here and how I missed some of these things. And maybe, just maybe, I momentarily dealt with it and then I just didn't process what the bigger meaning is. Cause I think sometimes we'll go through it and in the moment we'll be like, okay, fixed it, fine, it's good. And we'll move on. And we don't recognize the pattern or the repeated, feelings or behaviors that happen because of it. And so when I went back, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. From the meeting somebody at a bar and you're crying on my shoulder, to the ones that immediately are like, I've been through X, Y, and Z, and they show up and they're only present to feel something. And I'm like, oh my God. When I look back, I'm like, Jesus, there have been so many that were just there to take, that were just there to take. And in my mind, I handled it in the moment, not realizing it was a part of a bigger thing. And so now, when I came out of my relationship, it just is something that it just surfaced on its own. It was like, mm-mm, like stop. It was just like that. It was like, stop. And then I'm like, okay, what is this here? And I started noticing those things. And to my point earlier when I said, you're going to always continue to be a light. You're going to be exactly who you are. You're going to be exactly where you need to be. You're going to do exactly what you are meant to do. And you don't need to focus on that. You don't need to focus on that or think about that in any real way or form. You just you let yourself be. You don't do anything. You don't change yourself. But what you do is you pay attention to those little things in there, because there will be people who show up and they understand your light perfectly. That's why they're there. That's why they are there. They are. People recognize your contribution. People recognize how you can fulfill them. People recognize whatever it is that they can get for you. They recognize it. That's why they are there, right? That is just how attraction works. They're there for it. And if you continue to feed it, they will eat it. Okay. But the thing that you need to pay attention to is those little nuances and those little, points of entry where you're seeing something else, because people will play into it. People will put on a facade. People will do whatever they need to do to continue to get your energy. But when they break character and when they have those things where they just can't, they can no longer hold up the farce, right? That is where you need to really spend some time and say, is this who that person really is? And I venture to say, kind of like that thread on the sweater that is just hanging, and you just kind of like, the sweater is still amazing, but that little piece of thread, if I just pull it, and sometimes you don't want to pull it because you know it'll unravel, right? And that really is poor craftsmanship if you really want to know. That's really poor craftsmanship. But we're like, if I just leave it, it's just a little thread. Sometimes you need to pull that thread and let it unravel so that you can throw the thing away. And that is relationships with people, energy exchanges, interactions. That is all of that as well. Pull the thread and let it expose itself, right? Now, sometimes you might pull it and it just be a loose thread, no harm, no foul, and everything works out great. But more often than not, if you pull that thread, it's going to unravel and it's going to reveal exactly the quality. It's going to unravel exactly the quality that is there or is not there. And so I would just implore you to think about that. Think about your own historical timeline and how people have been drawn into your situation and what you feel that they've come to you for. And then recognize those little nuances, right? Like I said, I noticed them this time around and subconsciously, they just popped up. And I think it's because of a repeated pattern of dealing with it just in the moment and just being like, okay, move past it, not really recognizing how big of a part it played in just how I move through situations with people. But what I will say is on the other side of that now, right? Taking the moments, taking the time in between to just sit with it, I am able to decipher it so much more quickly now so that I'm not wasting my time or theirs. And as I said earlier, and I will say again, sometimes you just have to send people where they're meant to go, or at the very least, send them away from where they're not supposed to be, which is around me. And so I've gotten very good at that. I'm like, okay, when I know, I know. I went through a series of meetings with people, and within a week, 2 weeks, I'm like, yeah, no, yeah, no. And it was so interesting. The feedback. There would be guys that would be like, how do you know? You really haven't even gotten a chance to know me yet. You haven't gotten a chance. And I was like, yeah. And I'm sure you are amazing. I'm sure you are, but it's just something that I feel. And I remember, a couple of guys getting very mad with me. That's like, wow, you're superficial. You are this and you are that. And like, you really didn't even like, how do you feel like you get to know somebody in 2 weeks? I'm going to trust myself. I'm going to trust my inner self, my inner God light, right? And I'm just going to say that you are not meant for me. And that doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you a good person, doesn't make you anything other than you. But I am choosing to trust myself in this moment, and you're just not for me. And to be able to stand on that confidently and wholeheartedly has been so freeing from making the same mistakes over and over. Now, will it never find you again? Will those kind of people never find you again? No, they will continue to, because you will continue to be you. You will continue to be you, but you will send them along their way a lot quicker. And you will feel much more peaceful about doing so because you've redirected them exactly where they needed to go. So, my hope is that this hard life lesson, it was hard for me, but life lesson nonetheless, my hope is that this has empowered you to think about the ways in which you engage in relationship, friendship, courtship, whatever ship that can sail in your heart, mind, and emotions. My hope is that you examine the journey from start to now and see just what it is that has attracted people to take the ride with you, to sail on your ship, right? And for those that have tried to co-captain and have taken you off course. But my hope is that you examine that and you realize that you are exactly who you are meant to be. You're going to do exactly what you are meant to do. And there is nothing that you need to do to change who you are. This has been the Michael Experience Podcast. I thank you all so much for the time. And as I always say, go out there and love on yourself before you can love on somebody else. And if you are looking for additional ways to support this podcast, go to themichaelexperience.com and see all of the lovely merchandise that is there. And also visit Apple Podcasts for my mic drop moments behind the scenes inside the episodes. subscriptions. And I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace and love, y'all. Bye.